I'd like to think I have pretty decent instincts now when it comes to knowing who has bad intention. But I wasn't always as cautious and observant as I am now. When I was in high school, I always felt ugly. I had low self-esteem and anxiety, which was really more of a problem than my looks, so if anyone of the opposite sex gave me even a little attention, I would start to like them. I was pretty innocent despite how desperate I was, having only kissed one boy, so when I was 17 and a college guy put interest in me, I immediately clung to him. I was on this app before Tinder, and I met a guy who lived 7 hours from my home city. His name was Brandon, and he was gorgeous. Blonde hair, muscular, blue eyes. He played soccer for his university and was 19 years old. Honestly, he wasn't my usual type. I really liked guys with darker hair and eyes. I still do, but he was handsome and kind. He would shower me with compliments and talk to me all the time. I lived alone, long story, in an apartment with just my cat, so when I would get lonely or scared, he always comforted me. A month into talking, he started asking for pictures. Not ones of my face, but obviously nudes or bra pictures. Now, this was nearly 6 years ago, and I didn't have a good concept of stranger danger on the internet. I mean, smartphones had really only been around for 2 or 3 years at this point. At least in my school and with my age group. 17-year-old me, who was so insecure, wanted to make him happy because I couldn't believe I had gotten a guy like him. I was ready to do anything he asked. I never sent naked pictures. I was too insecure for that, but I would send pictures of me in my bra. He would shower me with compliments, saying how beautiful I was, and I fell for every word. With time, I started to get upset, though. I wanted to see him. I would always send him some when he asked, but he never sent me any. He would show me body pictures of him with his shirt off or things, but the pictures were always of bad quality. When I started getting too persistent, he promised me he would start calling me. For some reason, this appeased me, and we talked many times a week. After a couple of months, he got increasingly more sexual with me, telling me he wanted to do to me and how badly he wanted me. This made me nervous since I'd only ever kissed a boy, but also a little excited. It felt good to be wanted by someone I had really grown to like. This was all during the first semester of my senior year of high school, and I was going to turn 18 the next semester in late January. As it got to Christmas time, he started to talk about coming to my city to see me for my birthday. This had me really excited since I wanted to see him in person so badly. We had first talked about me going to him, something he had insisted on, but I chickened out and said I couldn't do the drive alone, which was an excuse. I really didn't want to go to an older guy's house and stay with him alone. My house made me feel safer. We planned on a weekend after my birthday and everything seemed fine. But then one day in my choir class, my best friend, an exchange student from Germany, was talking with me about him. I was telling her about him and showing pictures, and she got very unsettled. "Have you seen him on video?" I told her no, and she gave me a skeptical look. Something doesn't feel right. There's no way he is real. Not that you couldn't date someone like him, but he's just too perfect. She was very direct and blunt with me about it, something my other friends weren't. So I took her words deeply, and I'm just so thankful I did. I immediately asked him for a picture of his face. He made up some excuse about how he couldn't take a picture right then, so I persisted, asking every day. Finally, my instincts were kicking in and I was getting scared. I told him I wanted him to video call with me, and he said no. I fought him on it for hours one night, telling him that if he tells me the truth, I won't get mad. And he still refused. I put the name he gave me into Facebook, determined to find him on my own if he wasn't going to give in. Nothing came up on him at all. Texted, telling him I couldn't find his Facebook, and he gave in. Giving me a completely different name and telling me, that's me. I remember just feeling cold as I read that. I looked up the account, and everything he had told me was a lie. His name, his face, his age. He was 25, not 19. I was terrified. I thought I had been talking to someone just 2 years older, which is legal in my state, but he was 8 years older. I immediately stopped texting him. That's when he started getting obsessive. He would text me dozens of times a day and call me over and over. He would beg me to answer him, to give him a chance. Then he started threatening me to answer. He told me he had saved all of my pictures. He kept them all and told me he would send them to my friends and family on Facebook, show everybody me in my bra, and show our text messages talking about what he would do to me if we would have met. Looking back, all of that was more damaging to him than me, but I was young and stupid and afraid. I hated myself and my body so much, and I was terrified of people seeing it, so I started talking to him again, more reserved and cautious this time. The days inched closer to my birthday and the weekend we had planned. Our messages had become bland and short since I was trying to make him lose interest in me, but he never gave up. I took too long to message, then he would threaten me again. My birthday fell on a Monday that year, and he sent me all kinds of messages. I don't even remember what I did that birthday. I didn't have many friends, and I never liked to celebrate, so it was probably small. Even when Friday hit, I got a text from him that morning saying he was driving to my city and that he would pick me up from school. I was terrified. I had lost a lot of my friends this semester before. Long story, so they obviously had no clue about my situation. Out of desperation, I went to one of my guy friends who I hadn't talked to in a couple of months and spilled everything to him. He was a longtime friend, so he was sympathetic and promised to follow me home that day. I went straight to my car, ignoring the mass amounts of text saying, "Where are you?" and "I'm here." My friend drove behind me all the way to my apartment, which he had no clue I was living in, and stayed with me as I cried for a little while. I turned my phone off, and my friend left later in the night. Brandon had no clue where I lived, but I was still paranoid. What if he somehow found me? Only 3 people knew where I lived, 4 now with my guy friends, and he didn't come in contact with any of them. When I finally turned my phone on, he was threatening me again. I was so exhausted and fed up. I started spam texting him, yelling and venting. I told him how stressed he had made me and how what he is doing is wrong. I told him to send the pictures and that I didn't care anymore. I started to attack his character, telling him how no one would love him if he hides who he is and then treats people like shit when they catch him in the lie. Thankfully for me, he had enough care for me to take my words to heart. He apologized and told me he deleted all the pictures. He swore to leave me alone as long as we can still talk every once in a while as friends. I agreed, even though I knew I was lying. I talked to him for a month, short responses until he finally gave up. Even now at 22, I still see his name appear sometimes. I blocked his number and deleted him on everything, but his name still shows up sometimes on my Instagram or Snapchat when he's trying to re-add me. He's the reason I don't give my name or picture out. He isn't the first stalker I experienced. The first was when I was in 6th grade, but that's a story for another time. It's a long story, but please don't friend zone me too, just because I'm long-winded. I'm in the Netherlands on a work trip, and in the evening I find myself alone in a hotel with nothing to do. Like any self-respecting gay man, reading or watching TV seems like pretty unedifying pastimes. When you've got free time, so why not compulsively throw myself onto Grindr for hours and maybe risk my life meeting some weirdo? I start chatting with this dude. He lives fairly far from my hotel, so we decide to meet halfway to get to know each other. 5 kilometers on foot, which I happily do because I like walking around new cities. Not knowing the local geography, I imagine pubs and bars, and instead I find myself in a rather lonely, gloomy part of town. We meet, and he's much better looking than in the photos. But if on chat he was friendly and nice, in person he's reserved and unsociable, which I chalk up to Dutch stiffness. I talk to him, and he replies in monosyllables, with no engagement whatsoever. The emotional and physical affective deprivation my parents raised me with has produced me. An insecure egocentric who has to be liked by the other person at any cost. If he likes me, my unconscious suggests I'll heal my narcissistic wound and finally be worthy of my mom's love. I perform my personal mating dance. He's sufficiently smitten. Out of nowhere, he invites me to his place and I accept. We get to his place another 5 kilometers away, right in the countryside, and my phone stops getting a signal. I don't know if it's lack of coverage or if I ran out of credit. The house is nothing like I imagined. It looks more like the house of an old lady who collects doilies. He tells me the villa we're in was inherited from his grandmother, and he's been living there alone for several years. He shows me what he's cooking in the kitchen. A nauseating, watery stew that I hope he doesn't offer me. He takes me to the living room. We sit on the couch and he loosens up a bit. Between one chat and another, he tells me he's a fashion designer and that he produces the fabrics he uses himself with the help of a 3D printer. A super innovative technique. I tell him I know a Dutch designer who uses the same technique. Her name is Iris van Herpen. Pause. He starts foaming at the mouth. He begins telling me that this very Van Herpen stole his ideas and he wants to sue her. He pulls out DVDs of his fashion shows and comments on every single piece, meanwhile showing me YouTube videos of the established designer's shows with the supposed copies of his work. If Van Herpen's models look like ethereal, graceful works of art walking down the runway, his models wearing these creations look like runaway girls on their third walk of shame of the week. I don't tell him this, and on the contrary, I nod along sympathetically to his megalomaniac statements. As I resign myself to the idea that nothing's going to happen, he kisses me. One of the worst in my life. Surely a harbinger of far worse performances. I try to guide him and improve things, but nothing. He just can't do it. Like your grandpa when you try to teach him how to use email. He stops and tells me he'll be right back. He goes upstairs to the second floor. 10 minutes go by and he's still nowhere to be seen. I approach and shout, "Everything okay?" Yes, he says. Could it be that he wants me to go upstairs and I'll find him naked, bent over? I ask him, "Should I come up?" And he says, No, wait." So I wait. Another 20 minutes pass. Is he taking a shower? Yet I don't hear any water running. After a while, much darker possible scenarios start to crowd in. Ones anyone with a bit of common sense would think of if they found themselves in an isolated stranger's house. Is he putting on a raincoat to protect himself from the blood once he chops me up? Is he sharpening an awl with which to carve red rum into my belly after chaining me to the fireplace? I decide to make a run for it. The idea of being murdered by a stranger has just barely surfaced. The doubt turns into certainty when I realize that the door we came in through is locked. First thought was I was going to die. I go to the kitchen where there's another door and that one is locked too. I go back to the living room and meanwhile scan the place for possible escape routes. In a dramatic flash forward, I picture myself throwing an armchair through a window and then jumping out and running away, or finding a flashlight in the bookcase to send Morse code distress signals. After about 50 minutes, he comes back downstairs, impassive. "I want to bang you," he adds without any emotion. I've completely lost the desire. I'm genuinely convinced he's trying to kill me. I tell him I have to go home and that it's late. He replies that I can't go home now. I tell him he took too long and that I have to go back to my hotel, which is 10 kilometers away and it's pitch dark by now. He sighs. I ask him to let me connect to his Wi-Fi since my phone has no signal so I can follow the route on Google Maps. He points to a modem blinking under a chair. The password is underneath. I crouch down to look for the password on the sticker on the back of the modem. After a few seconds, I realize I'm bent over with him behind me. While trying to type the password, I keep glancing at him as he watches me slyly from the couch. My hands are shaking. At a certain point, I see him lean forward from the couch to grab something behind a piece of furniture. An object I can't see and that I decide must be a weapon to knock me out. I jump up, grab a lamp and, brandishing it, tell him, "Let me out of here." He looks at me surprised. "If you want to go out, go." "I can't," I tell him. "The door is locked." He looks astonished at this statement. "Follow me," he says. I'm now certain I'm going to die. I keep the lamp with me. He looks at me impassively as if this were perfectly normal. I follow him and we go into the kitchen, where the nauseating stew reigns supreme, and he tells me the keys are there. The light in the room is off. He walks in, without turning it on, and opens a drawer. And I clearly hear the clinking of cutlery. I suddenly turn on the light and keep brandishing the lamp. He looks at me coldly and takes the keys from the cutlery drawer. We head toward the door, and as soon as I'm outside, I make a run for it, with the lamp in my hands. It takes me 2 hours to get back to the hotel. As soon as I enter my room, I open my laptop, and since his first and last name were visible in the fashion show he tortured me with, I block him on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. Years later, this encounter unsettles me so much that every now and then I Google city name plus fashion designer plus killer, sure that sooner or later he'll kill someone or be caught for it. I'm left with two questions. What did he do alone on the second floor for 50 minutes? Was he actually preparing for a crime scene? Did he take Viagra and wait for it to kick in? Was the grandmother not dead, and did he knock her out with chloroform? What was he trying to grab from behind the piece of furniture? A weapon? A portable Wi-Fi hotspot for my dead phone? A dildo? I mean, I don't know. None of this adds up. So I live in Pennsylvania, and it's completely buried in snow right now. I have an interview tomorrow, so I spent 3 hours shoveling my car out. Finally, my car is free and warmed up. I'm dressed and I figure I might as well just go to CVS now since I'll have to go tomorrow anyway. It's about 15 miles away, 20-minute drive. When I get there, there's this old lady just standing at the entrance staring at me. I brush it off and go inside. I come out and she's gone. I get in my car, close the door, and within seconds she's knocking on my window. I roll it down all the way. My mom later told me to never do that again. And ask what's up. She asks where the closest store is. I tell her there's one behind her. She says no, the other one. I suggest the flea market across the street. She says no to the other one. Then it hits me. Oh, she wants Price Chopper, a 10-minute drive. She asked me, "Can you give me a ride?" I keep calling my daughter, but she's not answering. I ask how she got here. She said she walked, and I ask from where. She said she lives in the same community as me, 15 miles away in freezing snow. The sum doesn't add up. I suggest that she take an Uber, and she says she doesn't like Ubers because they take too long, and she insisted again that it's just down the street, even though it's really not. At this point, my brain is going crazy. Part of me thinks, what if I give her a ride and it's a good deed that pays off somehow? But the other part is screaming that anything could happen in that car. She could try to kidnap me, rob me, or worse. I tell her I can't. I'm in a rush. She begs a little more, tells sob stories, but I stand my ground. Eventually, she walks off. And here's the weird part. She didn't ask a single other person for a ride. She waited for me to get to my car. When I started driving off, I could see her head following my car in my mirrors. I'm 18, a young woman who doesn't look my age at all. A lot of people think I'm 15. I almost let peer pressure get me, because I'm scared to say no to strangers for some reason. But I'm glad I trusted my gut. Maybe it was just an old lady who needed help. The story begins in the summer. Not just any summer, but my first summer as a mother, and a single mother at that. Typical story. My ex isn't and never wanted to be around. I was too overwhelmed with my new motherly duties to be upset about my predicament. I was exhausted yet in love with my new addition. In the beginning of that summer, I met someone. I wasn't really looking, but I found him. The connection was there and so amazing that whenever small red flags popped up, I ignored them. We moved quickly. After a month of seeing him every day, he started sleeping over every night. He was my saving grace at the time. He adored me and my son. He did the 2 a.m. feedings, cooked dinner for me, and took care of me and my infant when I had emergency surgery in the fall. He did the laundry, cleaned the house. I mean, the man did it all. How did I get so lucky? I was just an average depressed single mom. I never thought I'd find myself happy like this. But it didn't last forever. Within a few months, he became a little controlling and jealous, even abusive at times. He started doing illegal things, like selling and using drugs. I didn't agree, but when I protested, I was met with a slap across the face or being belittled. I didn't know which was worse. The bruises faded, but my self-esteem never really healed. By winter, Christmas Day to be exact, I kicked him out. I had enough. He was sorry. He wanted to stay together for our son. Yes, he saw my son as his own. However, I did not want to give in. I had been in a previous bad relationship and didn't want this to continue for as long as I did the last time. Less than 2 weeks later, the heat went out in my car. Stupidly, I asked him to fix it since he had caused the electrical problems in my car in a fit of rage a while back. He agreed to check it out, so I took it to him. I and my son sat in the car bundled up while he attempted to fix it. Eventually, he rigged it and got the heat up and running again, but I couldn't leave just yet. He wanted to talk about us, even though I did not. I started having an anxiety attack. I told him I would go to the police station around the block if he refused to get out of my car. He smirked and egged me on, sure that I would back down. I got out of the car, and as I was going around to the other side to get my son out of his car seat, he jumped into the driver's seat and took off. I called him. He told me to take a walk to clear my head and hung up on me. What? I knew he was most likely headed to one place, his friend's apartment a few blocks away. Their daughter babysat for me a few times. So I was hoping. I was praying. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't immediately register the situation for what it was, which was my biggest mistake. His mind games were working. I wondered if my panic attack was worse than I remembered and if he was taking the baby to his friend's house while I cleared my mind. In the freezing cold of the night, I ran. I ran until I couldn't feel anything on my body, and I reached the apartment complex, and I didn't see my car. His friend's apartment was on the second floor, so I ran inside, ran upstairs, and knocked on the door. They were taken aback at my appearance. My hair was likely out of place, and I was so out of breath. They didn't say it, but I knew they were sick of hearing our problems. They'd witnessed the fights too many times. They assured me he probably would turn up at their house at any minute, and of course my son was safe with him. Of course they believed this was his son. He'd met them shortly after meeting me through his cousin, so they had no reason to believe otherwise. He claimed the baby as his own, and this was not the moment to correct them. I left their door and rushed downstairs. Now, see, the downstairs was in the process of being renovated. It was dimly lit, and there were hallway doors and apartment doors half open, with a cold draft coming through. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This is like a scene from a recurring nightmare. I ran up and down 2 hallways down there, before he finally called me back. I picked up, but he spoke first, and I heard his voice echo somewhere near me. My phone had been on silent and vibrate, so I knew he didn't hear it. I slowly made my way towards the front of the building, and he was standing there. I slowly put the phone down and asked him, "Where's my son?" He laughed and asked me if I was done freaking out. He pointed outside, saying the baby was in the car asleep. I went to run to the door so I could get outside. He stopped me. He then says he just dropped the baby off upstairs and his friend's daughter was feeding him. I sighed and felt a little relief. We continued going back and forth, and he kept telling me this would end if I would chill out and take him back home with me. He proposed the idea of making a late dinner and watching a movie together. Yeah, no thanks. Enough. I ran upstairs and banged on the door. His friend opened up with an unhappy look on his face. I quickly asked him to let me in so I could grab my son. He said he still hadn't seen my ex or the baby yet. I heard that and darted downstairs. My ex was no longer standing there. I ran down one of the hallways. Maybe he went out, a back exit. No look. But as soon as I got to the front of the building, he was there again. My car, however, was no longer visible. I screamed at him this time. "Where is my son? Where is my son?" I was becoming more and more aggressive. I felt like a lion unleashing my rage. Where the heck was my infant? Was he in the car? Where was the car then? Why was he left alone? My head was spinning. Couldn't breathe. I can't even remember what dumbass answers he was feeding me. I vaguely remember being told many different excuses and locations of where my car was parked. I just got to the point where I was streaming tears down my face and I kept repeating, "Where is my son?" I knew he wouldn't hurt him. I believed that. Throughout our troubles, he never once showed ill intentions toward him, but why couldn't he just let me take my baby home? I was spiraling. My yells were echoing. Nobody came out of their apartments. We were in a bad area. People minded their business out of fear of being targeted. Then again, maybe no one heard us because we were in the downstairs level where it was empty. Or so I thought. I backed away from him and went to unlock my phone. I needed to call 911. I never stood up and called them to protect myself, but I had to protect my son. Why didn't I call them sooner? Damn. My cold fingers were numb and I couldn't remember my passcode in my desperation. He growled for me to run quick, and I saw him run down a hallway. Within the blink of an eye, 2 police officers opened the front door to the apartment building and asked if I'm the woman looking for my son. They'd gotten a call that a woman was in distress. Yes, it was me. I told them what I could. They had me stand there and wait while they searched the empty downstairs and checked the friend's apartment. My son wasn't anywhere in there. It was all a blur. I don't know how much time had passed before more police showed up. They were whispering to each other. Why? It hasn't been long, has it? They couldn't have gone far. I recited my license plate more times than I can count on my hands and my feet. Yes, I was sure that was it. Had my son's initials in it and a number combo that I memorized. They put out a call. Whatever it was, everybody in the city was searching for my car and son. I showed them pictures of both. We presumed my son was left in the car, so they said they were posting officers on every highway ramp in case he was planning to go far. I was cold. Was my baby cold? I thought. My feet were hurting and my stomach growled lowly. The police told me it was going to be okay, but I needed to calm down and listen to them. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I closed my eyes and attempted to ground myself. An officer came up to me and tapped my shoulder. "Let's go," he said. I swallowed the lump in my throat and followed him outside. We walked for a few minutes and I saw a crowd of police officers. I saw a bunch of flashlights going back and forth. I saw, "Is that my car?" "Oh yeah, that is my car." I started to yell. The officer next to me told me to relax. No. I ran as fast as I could. If I close my eyes right now, I can still feel my feet barely hitting the pavement. The feeling of cold winter air I was breathing in. The numbness in my fingers. And most of all, I can still feel the spark of relief, happiness, and whatever million other words express the feel-good emotions I had when I ran up to my car and saw my son. An officer took my baby out of the car seat and handed him to me. I just hugged him and cried. He was okay. He was whining a little, and his diaper was soaked through his clothes. I was asked to gather what I needed from the car and to go back to the apartment with him to finish the statement. My ex did not get caught that day. He put us through one more terrifying, memorable day before he was caught. However, that night there was a warrant issued for kidnapping. Later that night, my ex had already changed his number and called me, telling me he knew he would be in trouble, so he was hiding out. I didn't care. I was silent on the phone. I kept checking on him every few minutes. He was fine. "Why are you so mad?" he asked. He didn't understand that, though a seemingly quick incident was over, the damage was done. I hung up and blocked the new number. The day was over. My son was safe with me, but mommy guilt was eating me alive. It still is to this day. If only I had never gotten involved with this man. If only I'd called 911 when the relationship first went sour. I blame myself more than I blame him sometimes. To the man who conned his way into our lives. The man who took advantage of a weak woman and used her biggest weakness against her. To the man who made newspaper headlines and had people calling me and knocking at my door. Please stay the heck away from me. Last year, I started my first semester at a university far away from home. At first, I was very intimidated because I'm not exactly the best at making new friends, but as time went by, it turned out that there aren't as many history students, which is why everyone got to know each other pretty quickly. We ended up building amazing group morale, where we would get lunch together, help each other out, and all that stuff. There was one guy in our group that really stuck out to me, particularly because of his weird sense of humor. Let's name him Serge. He kept making Hitler jokes on every occasion possible, which is very concerning knowing he wants to be a history teacher, or would just make very cringy, sexual comments towards girls in our group. We all kind of had common understanding of ignoring these kinds of things whenever he had said something and quickly moving on with another subject. However, it didn't take long for him to find my phone number in our group chat and DM me. That's where it all began. It all started out harmless with questions like, "Do we really have to know this?" Or, "Have you learned for this test yet?" Most of the time his questions didn't make any sense, but I figured he didn't have the right antennas to sense the cringe. And I happened to have a soft spot for Outcasts, so we kept talking for a while. One day I accidentally spilled an energy drink on my MacBook, and of course it stopped working. Unfortunately, there was an assignment due that week, and I wasn't sure how to manage that without a typing device. Sure enough, Serge found out about my situation and had the glorious idea to meet up at the library, where they happen to have computers. Of course I agreed, and we set up this homework day on the coming Friday. When said Friday came around, we surely enough met up to get this thing done. I have to admit, it was almost an instant regret for me, as he wouldn't talk or do anything when I was finishing the task. Once I was done, I realized that he had written one full sentence that entire time we were there, which was about 3 hours. As it got really late at that point, I told him I was going to look for a bus, but he kept insisting on taking me home, and I finally agreed. On the way to his car, he suggested we should get drinks since it's a Friday night. I told him I wasn't feeling too well, but he could have that one beer that was left in my fridge. He shrugged his shoulders and asked why we couldn't just get vodka. Once again, I reminded him that I wasn't feeling well and asked him where the heck he thinks he would be sleeping. His answer was, "Next to you." Heck no, I was thinking, already making a plan to get rid of him as quickly as possible. In my apartment, I gave him that one beer, hoping he'd finish it and leave. For some reason, I left my shoes and jacket on. He asked why I didn't take it off, and I told him I was really cold. He would come closer, unzip my jacket and say, "Oh, I know something to get you hot in no time." I jumped up and asked if he had finished his beer, not sure how to handle the situation. He proceeded to take out his notebook and turned on this weird show on Netflix, which is a cartoon about World War II. He said, "One episode, come on." I agreed despite wanting him to go and told him to leave once it's done. Of course, he took this opportunity, trying to come closer to me. All of a sudden, he grabbed me, threw me into my bed, and bit my ear. It honestly happened so quickly that I barely recall how he managed it in that time. I felt like a damn cook's noodle, unable to move. I yelled at him, telling him it's time to leave, and thankfully he did, but I could tell he didn't like that I kicked him out. Fast forward, he would send me messages while sitting in the same classroom, asking if he could pet my kitty, even though I don't have a cat. It kept getting weirder and weirder, and I never replied, but since he knew where I lived, I was scared to block him because I wasn't sure if he would simply show up at my doorstep if he couldn't talk to me online. As time went on, I found out that he texted multiple other girls from uni. Found out because they would come up to me and say that he talked about me, telling other people that I hit on him and jumped on his lap while he was at my place. Seeing how strange he was, they surely believed me without explanation, so at least I didn't have to defend myself. One day, we girls met up to talk about Serge and how to deal with him. We all decided it was best to block him, so we got our phones out together and got it done. That same day, I walked past him, looking away since I could feel him trying to make eye contact. Right after class, he followed me, blocked my way, and confronted me about blocking him. I think I've never been so scared. I simply couldn't speak, and I knew this guy was unpredictable. Luckily, one of my friends saw me and came over, asking if there was a problem. Serge immediately brushed it off by saying he just asked me something and booked it into the building.